Yep, I'm here.
Hey.
She is. I don't see her.
You guys gotta
Okay,
learn to
she-
put it on the group view.
I
I'd
can
like
see
to-
Lindsay.
Okay,
I can
guys.
see Lindsay.
I'd like to call the June 30th, 2020 meeting of the Ogunquit Select Board to order. It's 6:01 p.m. Roll call shows that all members are here. As we normally do, let's have a moment of silence to all those affected by our pandemic, and also for the loss of Arnie Ginsberg, a resident of Ogunquit since 1980. He's admired by all for his radio career and loved by our community for all he shared with us. And our hearts go out to Carlos and all of Arnie's close friends. Thank you. Jordan is going to air an interview he did with Arnie Ginsberg Friday on WOG-TV. I don't have the time though. Pat was going to find that out, so she'll tell us later if she's not on yet. She's having technical problems, everyone, so we'll try to proceed without her. I just wanted to go over a couple of ground rules at the beginning of this meeting that just so we don't have to interrupt as we go forward our business. It's 2 weeks before the election, which is July 14th. And we know people have strong feelings in the town. There's a state law that doesn't allow politicking in the polling place for 2 weeks prior to the election. And we've abided by that as when we've been in the Dunaway Center. Of course, we're not there. So even though we have the temporary okay to hold meetings outside during the state of emergency, I'd just like to ask the select board members and the public to abide by this rule and try to focus on the town business instead. And just to go over public comment, we encourage public comment. Just make sure you state your name, your street, you don't have to give your address, and your town, and you stick to the 3 minutes just so we can get everybody time to speak. And tonight we have a lot of things to vote on. So we're going to open up each agenda item for you to comment on as we go before we take a vote. And then of course there'll be citizens' comments at the end. And one other thing, as chair, I have a working knowledge of Robert Rules of Orders, but certainly I'm not a parliamentarian by any means. And I made a wrong ruling last meeting. A board member seconded a motion to adjourn with discussion. And I allowed that, but actually I checked in Robert's rules, and a motion to adjourn doesn't allow any deliberation. So that's it for now. The first item on the agenda, this is a really exciting, I think, agenda because a lot of projects are moving forward and we've got some money coming in. So that's always a good thing for everybody. And I think that's great news for citizens, taxpayers, and visitors. The first item on the agenda is, and it's all under new business tonight, except the town manager's report. First item on the agenda is select board action on a 3-year collective bargaining agreement with the Ogunquit Professional Firefighters Union. And this has been something we've discussed with the select board has discussed with the town manager over the last, I think we had 2 meetings on it. And there's a summary in the packet for everyone to look at of 2 pages of the agreement. So is the town manager there? Yeah, Pat?
No.
Okay, I think we need her here for this item to speak about it and answer some of our questions. So do I have a motion to move item 4.1, select board action on the 3-year collective bargaining agreement, to 4.7?
So moved.
Motion by Selectman Wynn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Selectman Willett. All those in favor, show of hands. 5-0. Thank you. So then we'll move to the second item on the agenda, the resolution to establish an age-friendly committee. We are an age-friendly community already, and that's an agreement with the AARP, and we need to establish a committee. We've discussed this previously as a board, And tonight we're going to vote on the resolution to appoint the committee, and also it includes their terms and so forth. The town manager put together the resolution, and Selectman Willett has volunteered to be the liaison, so I'm going to turn it over to him in a minute if he wants to add anything to the discussion. But this is a time of year where we're normally appointing people to committees, but because our voting has pushed back till July 14th, right after that, we'll start appointing people to committees where terms have expired. But and we're really thankful for all the volunteers in the town that are on our committees. Selectman Willett, would you like to add anything about the committee before we consider it and open it up for public comment?
Yeah, thank you. It's great that we can move this forward so that starting in July that we can appoint people and get this committee up and going. I know it's been something that's been discussed for many years. Charlie LaFlemme, a community member, was instrumental, as well as a few other people, in working with the town manager and others on our AARP application that the select board approved, I believe, might have even been 2 years ago now. And so this is sort of the next step for us to actually form an actual committee who can advise the select board and make recommendations. The one thing that I want to clarify that I understand, and certainly it's up for discussion, and although we highlight some specific things that are about folks being able to age, so to prevent people from, so an example is removing barriers from all types that may prevent people from remaining in their homes as they age. And a few other examples where I think we're specifically talking about seniors. But our town manager about a year ago talked about the AARP community status as an age-friendly community is really thinking about all ages of people, whether it's our young, whether it's children, whether it's young families, all the way through middle-aged folks to our seniors in our community. And so one of the first things that's being proposed is actually for this committee to perform a needs assessment to determine what is needed when we think about being an age-friendly community. So those are my general comments. I have a couple just recommendations as we to add in just a couple words on the committee language, but otherwise I'm looking forward to seeing this committee get up and started.
Hey, do any of the select board members have any comments before we open it up for public comment? Selectman Daley?
Yeah, Heath, I'm glad to hear your comments, because when I first read this, I mean, I'm going to support it. It's like, how can you not? When I first read it, I was a little bit taken aback. We are already very friendly to elderly people. Ogunquit's very friendly to elderly people. Kids not so friendly, I don't think. So I almost like it to be more like all age friendly. But I understand why we're doing this, and I support it. But I was a little bit taken back. That's all. I wish they didn't mention AARP 3 times in this thing.
Well, go ahead, Heath. You want to respond to that?
Yeah,
Thank
I think a big part of it is AARP has what they call their livable communities, and we applied to be in AARP livable community, and so I think that's a big part of making that connection from the application that we submitted a couple of years ago to now forming this committee as a part of that work.
Right. Okay. Any more comments? Otherwise, Tom, could you open it up for any public comment?
I don't see any hands raised right now.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to establish the Age-Friendly Community Committee?
So moved.
Okay,
Oops.
motion by Selectman Willett, was that?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second? Second?
Second.
Second by Selectman Daley. All those in favor, show of hands. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is 4.3. And that's to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract with FB Environmental to conduct the annual water quality monitoring testing. If Pat isn't here yet, I'll go over to the best of my ability.
Pat's here.
Okay, all right. I can just introduce it as, this goes back to when I was on the Conservation Commission, which must be 6 or 7 years ago. We've had working with these consultants and under a grant to monitor our water quality. So they get closer and closer every year to determining what's causing some of our problems in the water supply. And most of it is covered by a grant, and it's under the auspices of the Conservation Commission, and it has been budgeted for this year. Oh, Pat, do you want to add anything to that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, I was delayed. Nice to see everybody. Yes, this is an annual contract that we have with FB Environmental. They do all of our water quality testing in a very comprehensive way for our overall Ogunquit watershed. We, of course, have Maine Healthy Beaches that we work with in the summer, and the lifeguards do periodic testing in specific places. But this, the purpose of this contract is to take a more holistic view of the overall watershed. So this has been a very successful relationship that we've had with FB Environmental. As the chair said, this is always budgeted in the Conservation Commission's budget. And so it was budgeted last year, and it is again budgeted for this year. Happy to, they do the testing. They also do community outreach. So they work with the Conservation Commission, and we usually have a steering committee that hopefully will involve students when students are able to go back to school again, because this is always a good way for the teachers to engage young people in understanding the environment. So we've had a good success with that. Other projects we've done in the past is doing educational outreach to people who live in the watershed, going door to door, explaining to people about that catch basins are not intended as places for you to dump things from your household or to put your dog waste, and that use of fertilizers can adversely affect the watershed as well. So each year they try to focus on a new project based on what the steering committee advises. Happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that Pat brought up how it's a door-to-door operation. I had a small neighborhood gathering a few years ago with FB Environmental. We're working on different things in the town, and they talked us into getting 2 rain barrel systems put in, and they've really been beneficial. So any comments from the select board? If not, we can open it up for public comment. Selectman Willett?
Pat, is this, if we approve this tonight, is this being paid for with the funds from this fiscal year, which ends today? Or is this for next fiscal year that begins tomorrow?
The next fiscal year.
Okay. I would like us, while I anticipate the voters are going to approve our budget, I would like to see us make it contingent upon the voters approving the budget. Is that okay with your time frame for signing the contract, Pat?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract with
Madam
FB.
Chair, were you going to, excuse me, sorry,
Yes.
point of order question? Were you going to
Yes.
open it up to any public comment?
Oh, sorry, I forgot. Yes, like to open it up to public comment.
Currently, there are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Okay, back to the motion. Is there a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract with FB Environmental to conduct the annual water quality monitoring program, subject to the approval of this item in the upcoming budget by voters? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Selectman Daley, second by Selectman Willett. All those in favor, show of hands. I don't see Lindsay on my screen.
I'm here. I'm
Hi.
raising my hand.
Thank you. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone. The next item is 4.3. To authorize the treasurer to enter into a line of credit for the amount of $200,000. And I'll turn this over to Pat to explain why we're doing this at this point in time.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I think everybody knows that this coming year, we think we will have a number of financial challenges. We're hoping not, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. But one of the things we certainly know is that the town goes into a period of low cash flow between the start of the fiscal year and when taxes are due in November. So some towns do a tax anticipation note so that they always have those funds available to be able to pay what is needed. This line of credit is a different way, and this is, we haven't taken out TANs in the past, in the recent past, I would say, because we haven't needed to. This is more of the treasurer looking ahead to make sure that we've just prepared. And a line of credit means that we have up to $200,000 available. If we don't use any of it, we don't pay anything. If we do use it, you pay just for what you're using. And the agreement that we are looking at with Camden National Bank is at 3.25% interest. Obviously, we are hoping that we don't have to use it, but we didn't want to wait to the last minute before looking into that. So we just wanted to bring that to the select board's attention. We don't know how the voters will be voting on the budget and the use of the fund balance. So this is a way for us to make sure that we are able to continue operations if we get to a low cash position.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions from the select board members? A discussion, Selectman Daley?
Yeah, Pat, I think it's a great idea. I'm glad we're being proactive. But where did the 200,000 come from? Why not 300,000 or 100,000 or 500,000?
I think that we were thinking 200,000 would be sufficient. And we didn't want to concern people that we were getting a larger line of credit than necessary. But thanks for asking.
Selectman Willett?
Yeah, Pat, can you share a little bit more about why we haven't needed this in the past versus why you think we might need this in the coming year?
Sure. I think that we are just being very realistic in terms of our taxpayers. Ogunquit has an excellent performance of all of our taxpayers paying their taxes. Not only do they pay them on time. I think we're just looking at our tax base and looking at where the economy is now, where it might be as we go into the fall. And if people need to wait before they're actually paying their taxes, we just needed to make sure that we didn't get to a low cash position and not be able to make sure the town was able to pay our bills. So it's mostly the economy in terms of if some of it's primarily, I would say, businesses, because as you know, most of our taxes do come from the commercial sector. And if they need to keep their cash for their own purposes before they pay their bills, then that is something that we just need to be aware of and hope that everybody has a great summer like we're off to.
Chair?
Selectman Wynn?
Pat, at our last meeting, when we spoke with the auditors, did the auditors mention, they had mentioned something to the effect that a lot of municipalities are doing something like this? Is that true? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of municipalities needing to use more of their fund balance than they have in the past, as well as taking out tax anticipation notes, or in our case, a line of credit, which we think is a better financial approach.
Thank you, Pat.
Sure.
Any more questions, Selectman Willett?
When you say our fund balance, is that the undesignated fund balance that you're talking about, or is that a different I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly.
Oh, no, thank you. I should clarify that. Yeah, it's the unassigned fund balance. So it's the basically our rainy day fund that has been obligated in this year's budget if it's necessary to use that because we don't have the revenues coming in. We're
And
obviously hoping we don't have to do that.
if I remember correctly, 3.6 million sticks in my head, but can you clarify what that amount is?
It would be less than that, and maybe I can look that up when we go on to another agenda item, and I can clarify that.
Okay, should we open up to public comment anymore? Okay, Tom, if you could open up and see if there's anybody from the public that has a comment or question.
Mark McLeod, you should be able to unmute and talk.
Okay, I hope you can hear me.
Yep,
Just
go
a
ahead,
small
Mark.
question. Hi, I don't have any problem with the idea. The only question I have is why we're doing Camden National Bank and not one of the banks that actually has a branch in town. They actually contribute to the community in some ways at least. And I'm just curious if that was entertained. And that's all I have. And I'll go back on mute from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the town has our banking accounts in several banks, including Kennebunk Savings Bank, as well as Camden National and TD. And the treasurer contacted each of the banks to see which bank would give us the best rate, and Camden National gave us the best rate. So we're always in favor of buy local, but money's going to trump.
Thank you, Pat. Are there any other questions? Okay,
No other
Back to-
hands raised.
thank you, Tom. Back to the select board.
And Madam Chair, if I might,
Yes,
just in response to Select Board Member Willette's question, our fund balance is 3.3, and so the budget is based on using approximately $1.4 million of that.
thank you. Is there a motion to authorize the treasurer to enter into a line of credit loan agreement with Camden National Bank in the amount of $200,000?
So moved.
Motion by Selectman Wynn. Is there a second?
Second, Daley.
Second by Selectman Daley. All those in favor, show of hands. Motion passes 5-0.
No, 4-0.
4-0. Where's Lindsay?
Heath? No, Heath.
Heath is here. Oh,
I
Heath,
raised
you
my
didn't.
hand.
Oh, Lindsay, I see it.
No,
Okay.
no, I raised my hand.
Okay. Heath, how are you voting?
I'm a nay.
Excuse me?
I'm a nay.
You're a nay. Okay. Motion passes 4-1. Selectman Willett descending. 4.5 is one of the great pieces of news we have for tonight. So I'm not going to take the thunder out of the town manager and all and the people in the town, our employment who work so hard to get this done. So Pat, maybe you can talk about the recent Keep Maine Healthy grant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is, I think, something for everyone in our town to be very happy about. We've all been living with COVID-19 since mid-March, and as we start and are about to enter July and the high tourist season, the governor has been talking with local officials throughout the state, but I think she's paid special attention to those of us on the seacoast because she knows that people coming from the other states have to come to York County first. And we were very, I think, upfront with her in explaining that in order for the rest of the state of Maine to be safe, we have to be safe. And that's why we've put in as many measures as we've put in and done the communications campaign that we've done. And I think that impressed her that we have been able to, even though we were a hotspot because of the nature of our community and our county, that we still were able to keep the cases low in terms of the hospitalizations. So the governor, as you know, has been very concerned about understanding that Maine is a tourism state. We get a very short window to be able, for most people in this state, and this is statewide, to be able to make their money for the whole year, but balancing that with keeping everybody safe. And so what this Keep Me Healthy program is about is primarily a communications program, a public outreach campaign, where the state partners with municipalities to do some key actions. And it's primarily about communication. So there are 3 simple things for us to do to keep ourselves and our community safe. And we have been talking about them since March 13th, when we had our first case of COVID-19 in Maine. And that is, if people would wear face masks, if people will social distance appropriately, and if people will wash their hands frequently and thoroughly, that can flatten the curve. That is the science, that is the data. And as time has gone on, wearing your mask has become even more and more important. And so the thought of this grant has been that we've got community service officers already. We need more of them. I think as I look at the traffic on the email going to the select board and the COVID-19 task force, the number 1 complaint people have is somebody is not wearing a face mask. And what can we do about that? So having this outreach where we can hire additional community service officers, we could hire additional people that could be more of the health outreach to be able to monitor people distancing on the beach when we get more busy in town, distancing in town, and making sure that we're all abiding by the social distancing guidelines will be very important. The other part of this is in communications, and we have spent quite a bit of money, as I think you probably all know, in terms of doing a lot of signage around town. We've also worked really hard to have the community services officers start work earlier than normal. So we want to be able to up that by keeping the messaging fresh. And so we are not going to be able to do this alone. It's going to take everybody. And so part of this grant will allow us to partner with the Ogunquit Chamber of Commerce. And I've been so pleased with Alice Pierce's activism in terms of being very proactive, trying to get the members of the chamber all engaged. I think that's been very effective, but not everyone is a member of the chamber. So we want to make sure that we get that information out to everybody. We have been successful during the spring, obviously, because we didn't have as many people. I think over this last month, as we've got more people in town, and we hope as we approach the 4th of July weekend that we're going to see a whole lot more people, but that everybody is acting responsibly. And I have to say, I think, and I hear this from other people who have traveled around the state, when they look around Ogunquit, they see that people here are taking this very, very seriously, which I think is a wonderful thing. I think it's a testament to the kind of community we are, but we also don't want to let our guard down. So this grant will allow us to do that public outreach, will allow us to hire more people, more community service officers, so that we can better staff the marginal way, so that, you know, there's just not one community service officer out there. And you'll hear a little bit from that, more about that by the police chief in a little later. We've got the beach that we, you know, certainly the lifeguards will do what they can do, but they also have to be paying attention to the water side. We need people paying attention to the land side and having people that are like ambassadors out there to give general information about the town, but also making sure that, you know, as people start getting a little bit too close to each other, they might spread out. And that goes for in town as well. We haven't had queuing problems, but certainly that is something that we need to be on the lookout for. And so it's this whole range of things that we will be able to do with this grant. And one of the things that this grant will also do is to pay for one of the electronic messaging boards that we have purchased and has been very effective. I want to just in addition to thanking the Chamber of Commerce on this, I want to thank my fellow town managers in our 6 Seacoast town community, because as you look at the all the towns that were awarded grants, we all applied and we all were awarded those grants. And it was early on that we started talking about what we needed to do when the shutdown phase, that we did that in a coordinated way. And then as we started to reopen, we're doing that in a coordinated way. And so putting this grant together, making our case to the governor has been very helpful and effective. I think that it just is people need to understand that the state can promulgate regulations and laws, but they're nothing if you don't have implementation. And you have to rely on the people at the local level to do that level of implementation. I know some towns are saying call the state. The state is not going to be able to come down in time and to be able to say you need to move apart from each other. But the people who live local, who care about us local, we're going to be the ones that are looking out for each other. So I appreciate that the governor recognized that. She also was hoping we would do that on our own, but we made the case that we do not have extra staff. We do not have extra money to be hiring extra staff. And so luckily the Congress did give the state some money through the CARES Act, a total of $13 million. And the grants that are being awarded by the state for the Keep Me Healthy grant is $9 million. So hopefully, if we're successful and we need more funds, we'd be able to apply for some additional funds. But in saying that, we wouldn't be able to get any of these funds if we didn't have somebody who put the grant request together. And so I want to thank our special projects manager, Dave Riccio, for coordinating that. But every member of our staff worked on this to make every department is affected by this, from the police department to the town clerk, from our beach pass person to our facilities people. So everybody has played a role in this, and all understand that we are all going to be public health advocates and ambassadors over the next several months. This grant became effective June 8th, and it lasts through the middle of October, which would be the normal tourist season. In Ogunquit, we of course hope it stretches into December. So I'm happy to answer questions, and I just want to congratulate everybody for their effort on this.
Thank you, Pat. Any questions from the select board? We can go around and each ask Pat any questions if we have them. Selectman Wynn, you have any questions, comments?
Seemed very thorough to me, so I don't know what else I could ask.
Okay. Selectwoman Perry?
I don't have any questions or comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Selectman Willett?
Yeah, one, just congratulations. We've been talking about, particularly as we tighten the budget, where safety is our priority, and so it's great to see this. You clarified one of my questions, that whether it's the proposed staff in the grant are to add additional staff compared to what we already planned to hire, what's already in the budget that's being put before the voters, correct?
It's a combination of both. So I mean, this is going to benefit our FY20 budget as well as our FY21 budget to pay for the work that's being done, because our CSOs have usually been parking enforcement officers. They're now going to be expected to do health advocacy. So they will be eligible for some of their wages to be paid through this grant.
So there's a potential that we'll see some savings in the budget that we're actually putting before the voters.
Theoretically, yes. Yep.
Okay. And then
proration of duties.
And then I assume there's probably some record keeping. What's the reporting process to sort of report to the state as to how we spent the money and whatnot?
The state does have a contract that we sign, and they will expect us to submit records of how we spend all the money and account for everybody's time. I should have mentioned, because time was of the essence on this, they did not have put together a lot of red tape, will I say, form wise. I think that they wanted to, as long as you can show an accounting of how you spent it, it's a basic spreadsheet, basically. But the governor, I think, announced this on June 9th. The application was due June 22nd, and we received the positive award announcement on June 26th. And frankly, they were planning to do that today. So this gave us a little head start to get moving on it. So there will be accountability, but it's not going to be overly, it's not going to be like FEMA. I'll put it that way.
Good to hear. Good to hear. My final question is, and you mentioned like we'll be able to pay for one of the big signs, the electronic signs.
Yep.
Did I understand correctly that it can only be for expenses from June 8th and moving forward? So we won't be able to go back to the month of May for some of the things that we paid for. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I would say that's the current thinking. I would tell you that a number of the communities, us included, put a lot of upfront costs into this. So if the state in fact does have leftover funds, there might be a potential for us to at least put that case forward.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, the way I understand it, Pat, there may be a second phase to this program.
It could be, yes.
Could be, okay. Well, I think the town got more than its lion's share. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot Selectman Daley. Can you go after me? I can never forget him. I mean, I just forgot to ask him.
Thank you, Madam
But
Chair.
I think that we got at least our lion's share of the, we got all that we requested. So that was great. And just to share with everybody, Pat had told me she was advertising for these jobs before the grant came through, thinking that we were going to get some. So it's of immediate importance that we've gotten this money. The sooner the better, of course, because you know, we didn't have the money to do everything we wanted to do to keep the town safe, and I think this is going to really help a lot. So it's great. Selectman Daley.
Yeah, the fantastic news. I've always said Ogunquit never gets money from the state or the government, so it's nice that we finally get money. But Pat, and you probably don't have the answer to this question, but I have to ask it anyway.
Sure.
You said 6 other coastal communities got grants, and you sent in the packet, there's like a bunch of towns in Maine that got grants. How many of them pay $100,000 for a special project manager to make that happen? And if you don't know the answer, I understand. I don't expect you to know that, but maybe you do.
I think every community establishes their staffing in different ways. And so they may not be calling people that, and they share duties. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I'll find out. I mean, yeah.
No, don't waste your time.
No, that's okay.
Not that important. It's nice to have the money.
It's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any Tom, we'd like to open it up for public questions or comments?
Currently, no hands raised.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Madam
Is there-
Chair, if I could just follow up on your point, time is of the essence. And I do know that we've got, you know, a number of people who are unemployed because of the economy, and some of them are in the food sector business. We're looking for people that are good with people, that are outgoing, want to be helpful to people. So if anyone listening, any of you know people, please send them our way, because we would like to, this is a job creation grant as well as a health grant. So just keep that in mind. We want to have good people working in Ogunquit.
Madeline needs a job.
That's true. I could just, but I'm not good with people. No, I shouldn't have said that. Okay. Is there a motion to accept the state Keep Maine Healthy grant in the amount of $233,941.70 to fund the town's continuing public health plan related to COVID-19?
So moved.
Motion by Selectman Wynn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Selectwoman Perry. All those in favor, show of hands. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is also, I think, very exciting and involves a lot of money coming into the town. It's the acceptance of FEMA funds in the amount of $676,000 and change. for repairs and improvements to infrastructure. So we've gotten good news on this before. Pat, why don't you kick it off, and then the select board can add any comments or questions.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. If you would acknowledge me, I'd like people to know it's $676,502.97. And this money is very important to this town. Again, it's another example of projects that need to be done. These are not nice to do projects. These are things that needed to be done that we would have to pay for out of our local property tax dollars if we were not eligible for these FEMA funds. I wish we weren't getting the FEMA funds. In other words, I wish we didn't have the damage done to our infrastructure. But since we did, and since there is a federal program to help us recover from those storms in March 2018, we're very pleased to be able to receive this money. And the process for getting federal emergency management funds is a very long one, unlike the Keep Me Healthy, which was a week and a half. And I've asked Dave Riccio, our special projects manager, to be with us tonight in case you had specific questions about the projects. Most of them are on the marginal way. They are all projects that we have engineered to make sure that they are going to last for the period that we would want them to last, that they are lifetime kind of projects. They also are being done in a way that they will last. So when FEMA gives us money, it's to repair the damage, but it's also to keep the infrastructure long lasting so that it's able to withstand other storms in the future to the extent we humanly can think of those kind of things. With this grant of $676,500, that brings us to about $1.1 million that we have received in hand from the FEMA program. And happy to answer questions, but if there's specific questions about the projects, I probably will ask Dave Riccio to respond to those. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anybody on the select board have questions for Pat or David? Riccio. Selectman Willett?
Pat, what is the state match and town match for these funds?
I'm going to let Dave do it because he knows it off the top of his head. I think it's, yeah, I won't. David.
I think that was in the materials you gave us, but I have it here.
So I think Tom's probably looking for Dave. Yep, there's Dave. If we can elevate him.
Hello.
Dave, you should be able to unmute. Yep.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, the state match on these particular funds would be $180,400.80, which was an amount that I noted in the memo that I sent to Pat.
And what's the process for acquiring that state match?
Once all of the projects are complete, you go through a closeout process, and then once all the projects are closed, the state will reimburse you for their share, as well as any of the direct management costs that you've submitted to them to be reimbursed as well.
Okay. And then what's the town share? Is it 10%?
10%, correct.
Okay. And so, Pat or Dave, do we have this budgeted anywhere? I believe we do, but can you explain that just for clarification for everyone?
Funding, go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
Dave, you can proceed. I can't see you, but if you want to speak, that's fine.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, the funding is, we do have the natural disaster funds, and we set aside the money project by project. But this is, and Dave can speak to this better than I think. Some projects are reimbursement, some projects are upfront. And so when we get the money upfront, we're able to have that money in our capital budget.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Any comments? Dave, correct me if I'm wrong with, if I'm not precise on some of these numbers, but I'd just like to respond to Selectman Daley's comment about paying for a position to do this work. And we've gone over this with the budget, so maybe some people in the audience, I know the select board's very familiar with this, are aware of this, but the town's been, we've had a commitment from FEMA for over $4 million. And that is 42% of all of the FEMA money that went to York County. And the reason we have that is because of the work that's been done and the specialty and the type of person that's able to get this done and follow up. And it is saving taxpayers a whole lot of money that we don't have to pay to do these projects. And in his spare time, he applies for other projects and grants besides FEMA, as you can see, the state grant. So we are making our money back in a very large way, and not on the backs of taxpayers. So it's a tremendous thing we're doing, able to get these things fixed in a quality way and not having to have the taxpayers fund it.
And I think it's also important for people to recognize that FEMA will pay for my time that I've put into doing this work. So that in essence, the town is paying me now, but they will get the money back later. And the state has those funds in accounts so that the money is there. It's not phantom dollars.
Thank you for bringing that up. Selectman Wynn, did you have your hand up?
Heath was before me.
Oh, okay, didn't see it. Go ahead, Selectman, with that.
Yeah, David, I appreciate you making that comment. We discussed that during the whole budget process, and I think that's an important point that Pat had explained, that a lot of these projects, of course, it only once it gets approved, but that your time can be, part of your time can go to, in essence, FEMA pays for that. So I appreciate you reminding us and everyone about that.
Well, the other thing to clarify as well is it doesn't stop. Once the project is approved, my time reimbursement does not stop with FEMA. As long as I'm involved with working with the engineers, following the project through to design, construction, and then being complete, all of those hours are reimbursable. And I'm involved in each piece of that process. It doesn't stop when something gets approved.
Great. So some more savings coming from our general operating budget down the road. Thank you.
That's what we try to do.
Yes, Selectman Wynn.
It's more of a comment. At a previous time, I'm really excited about what's happening, because I remember several years ago on a similar board where we were talking with the town manager about having someone do just this thing. And all this discussion that we've had about reimbursement and being taken care of. I remember one of the board members who on the budget review committee, who I think is still on that review committee, made a comment that, well, it'd be a wonderful thing. It'd be great if this person or a person that we had do this, the money that is raised basically pays for their salary. So for me, going back several years, listening to a different board, John and I were on that board together, and all the comments that were made at that time, you can still see them online. And it's nice to see this come to fruition and for people to have a vision in a way that is going to help the town. But finally, we have someone that actually, we can do that. And this kind of money is unheard of since I've been on the board, and we've had quite a few storms in the past. So, and all those board members in previous said it'd be really nice if this position really should pay for itself. And as you can see, at this point in time, it's done a pretty good job. And I understand people are concerned about, well, have the department heads or whatever do whatever it is. But this type of thing, especially for FEMA, you really have to follow through. And like I said, a previous board, they were literally wanted to get a position to do this similar thing. So for me to come into fruition and see this, it's not a bad thing, especially if the position's being paid for and the taxpayers don't have to do that. It's a nice thing. Thank you. Long comment.
Thank you. I'm ready to move to get the public input. Oh, John, I'm sorry, I can't see you on my screen.
You
All
leave.
right. So, Madam Chair, one last comment. I love the fact we're getting money. I really, really do. Like Bob sort of alluded to, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, we got nothing from anyone. It was rare. So I love what we're getting the money, but maybe I'm being a pain in the butt. Maybe I'm being stubborn, but I just think department heads should be more involved in doing what this project manager is doing. And maybe I'm alone on that opinion, but that's where I'm coming from. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Tom, could you open it up for public comment?
All right, I've got a couple hands. First is going to be Jim Hartwell. You should be able to unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
I am totally confused because from what I heard tonight, we have millions of dollars that are being appropriated to the town of Ogunquit. And we have a gentleman who's been responsible under the town manager for bringing those monies in. What I'm confused about is why Selectman Daley and Selectman Ouellette and candidate Dolliver have been working so hard to eliminate that position and say they can spread it around to other areas of the town that have responsibilities for other things. What does it take to recognize that this gentleman, Riccio, has brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars more to come? And we have 3 people right now are trying very hard to abolish that position. I find that very, very uncomfortable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Madam Chair, may I just respond to that?
Let's wait for a minute. I don't want to go back and forth with citizens. We can have comments later.
Thank you.
Peter Kahn, you should be able to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I think it's great that we have 2 people on the town payroll that have the talent to successfully acquire grant money for us. These individuals are Fred Mayo, the harbor master, and Dave Riccio, the special town manager. My kudos to both. And most recently to Dave for the over $900,000 that will be deposited in the town treasury this week. Every dollar Dave brings in helps to lower the mill rate. Dave, from my perspective, keep up the good work. We're all grateful for your efforts. Many thanks.
Thank you, Peter.
That's it for hands raised right now.
Okay, thank you. At least we know there are some people out there watching the meeting. I was getting nervous. Selectman Ouellette, you want to just take a minute, please? We don't want to extend this.
Sure. I just want to clarify my position because I have not advocated to eliminate Dave's position. In our budget deliberations, I advocated that we budget for him in a different way. And there was a lengthy conversation with our town treasurer about, do we put Dave in a particular department budget and budget his position using general funds, or do we budget for him anticipating of getting funds like this? And the treasurer explained that her preference would be to do the latter. However, we didn't have those funds guaranteed at that point in time, and she preferred to be more, I'm not thinking of the right word, but wanted to be more cautious than suggest that money might be coming in and then it doesn't come in down the road. So I just want to be clear that I've not advocated to eliminate this position. What I wanted to clarify is where this position was funded. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, moving on, back to the select board. Is there a motion to accept?
There is a
There's
hand raised.
I'll allow it, but we closed public comment. So Tom, if that was raised before.
It was right as you were saying
It was,
raised.
it was.
Okay.
All right, Mary, you should be able to talk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Kirsten.
Hi, this is Kirsten, Highland Avenue. And first of all, I'm so grateful to Pat and to Dave and to the harbor master for his efforts to bring in grant money. And I don't want to make this a negative because I'm just so proud of our town to be moving forward in a visionary way, but I have to comment. I hear you, Heath, that you say how you advocated for this. I thought I had heard a specific comment about cutting the budget 5 to 10%, no new hires. I heard the same from John. It's discouraging. I look at other towns and their staffing, and if you look at how people staff we are at bare bones. And over the years, we've stripped our infrastructure of critical workforce. And we talk about buildings and we talk about roads, but we don't talk about staffing and adequate staffing. We lay project after project on the town manager and expect her to come through. And we have professionalism that I haven't seen in my time of paying attention. I really hope that we can celebrate the things that are positive here. And I hope that we can look to trying to staff things in an adequate fashion, that we can meet the demands that are incredibly pressing. We've heard it, look at the projects that have been accomplished. Everything that you had wanted to accomplish has now been accomplished. Look at this, we have new beach bathrooms. We have dune overpasses. We have process and policy that we have never had before. We're not conducting email meetings. We're not, I would like to celebrate. This is a new day. And I'm tired of hearing complaints about how we are not following procedures and process. We're moving forward. This is moving forward. And I'm sorry if I sound passionate about it, but I'm really exhausted by somebody putting something out and then saying they didn't say it. Yes, you talked about cutting our budget 5 to 10%. You talked about no new hires. This was a position that was put forth as a full-time staff member, and now it's not. And I'm really sorry to see that we can't ever really get out of our own way. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Madam
Tom, are
Chair-
there any more comments? Okay,
No other hands.
back to the select board.
Madam Chair, may I ask Pat a question?
I guess, go ahead.
On the, my understanding is the budget that's being put forward that we unanimously voted on has Dave funded at 75% in the Public Works Department. But my understanding is that the town, and potentially even with these funds, plan to keep him employed through other work. And I guess my question is now that we know we have this money, is it anticipated that we can keep him at 100%?
I'm not sure that I can answer your question. I'm going to say yes, but I'm not sure that I know what. His position will be funded at 100. The contracted position will be funded fully. Yes, if that's the question. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Is hearing public comment. Is there a motion to accept, I'll say, FEMA funds in the amount of $676,502.97 to fund repairs and improvements to infrastructure that was damaged during the March 2018 storm? Motion by Selectman Nguyen. Is there a second? Second by Selectman Willett. All those in favor, show of hands. I can't see John and Lindsay.
They're doing
I'm raising my hand
They
here.
got it?
Dave.
Okay. Thank you.
Alien-
Motion passes 5-0. Now we were up to 4.7, which is actually 4.1 that we moved at the beginning of the meeting because our town manager had technical problems. This is a motion or an action to approve the 3-year collective bargaining agreement with the Ogunquit professional firefighters. And that's something that for the public's information, the select board has met with the town manager on multiple occasions. I can't remember if it's 2 or 3. And we've received the contract, proposed contract weeks ago. And we have a summary sheet on that with all sorts of figures that we've gone over. So I'm gonna first let the town manager give us a quick overview of what you've been working on, and thank you and the HR consultant that we use and the firefighters and the fire department management for all the time that you've put into this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excuse me. Anytime you get to the point where you can present a collective bargaining agreement with everybody feeling like they've worked hard to bring forward a proposal that will serve both the town and the employees well is always a good day. And I think that's what we're presenting to you this evening. The contract itself is in the select board packet, as well as my cover memo, which provides some overview. I want to just emphasize a few things that people may not know. I think everybody in town knows that we have an excellent fire department, that we have very highly skilled firefighters. You see them out doing any number of things in the community, as well as responding to both fire incidents, prevention calls, inspections, as well as emergency medical calls. But I'm not sure that everybody gives that a lot of thought. We are a little dinky tiny town. We have 8 full-time professional firefighters. They are highly skilled. We are fortunate enough to have 5 licensed paramedics who are also firefighters 1 and 2, and 3 licensed advanced EMTs, firefighters 1 and 2. Most small towns do not have that level of professionalism in their department. We're able to do that partly because we're a Ogunquit, and who doesn't want to work in a Ogunquit? But more importantly, because our small year-round population, as you know, expands remarkably during our high season. And that's why a few years ago, from May to October, the select board approved the contract that let us go from having 2 full-time firefighters on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to during the high season of bringing 1 firefighter on for half a shift in recognition of the number of calls that we receive. And again, I want to, for people to understand that there's only 2 firefighters on duty at any one time. And if we get calls and you've got them both tied up with a call, we don't have other firefighters to respond. And so that's just something that we have been living with. I think that we are looking at other ways for us to address that and discuss some of that this year during the budget process. And I think it's something that we need to continue to discuss for the citizens to have a fuller understanding. The other part about us being a small town, we have an incredibly complex array of calls that the firefighters in Ogunquit are asked to respond to because of the nature of our community. Even though we're a very tiny one geographically, again, our population expands. We've got highly valuable both commercial and residential property. We have open spaces from the beach to the marginal way that bring their own kind of incidents that the firefighters have to respond to. And then just the idea that we are the first responders for the turnpike. And even though we don't have a direct access to the turnpike and an exit or entrance to the turnpike, we're still considered the first responders for the turnpike. And so that brings a whole lot of other kind of response that we have to deal with. I think that it's also important to know that in terms of the department is fire and rescue. And rescue means our emergency medical services, but it also means, you know, like last year, we had somebody who was in a wheelchair and toppled over the marginal way. That was not an easy kind of incident to respond to. We have people, due to our demographics, that have a lot of health issues that require attention that would be more than you might see in other communities. And I think that one of the timely conversations to have about our fire department right now is the fact that we're in a pandemic. And when we started to work on preparedness for the coronavirus, I know everybody understands that if you had to be someplace in Maine to deal with this virus, being in Ogunquit was one of the better places to be because of the level of preparedness that our fire department put into understanding this virus, getting the necessary PPE early on so that when called upon, they would be able to keep themselves as well as the patients that they were visiting safe. So that is just another part of our overall fire department's preparedness and expertise that is so important to us. And I think that's why we all know that our fire department is very well regarded and respected, and people know that they're there if we need help. The other thing that I think is important is that our fire department is very accessible. So people, especially over the last several months, have not wanted to go to a doctor's office or to a hospital, but they knew that they could call our fire department or they could visit with any of our EMTs, paramedics at the fire department and know that it would be someone that they knew and that they could trust and be able to reassure them about what their blood pressure is and if they were experiencing any kind of symptoms that they needed to look into that was like more of a wellness check that didn't require them to go to a hospital, but they just weren't feeling like themselves. So having that level of in-house direct care is something that is very important to this town. And I think it gets back to the whole issue that we had early on in this meeting about being an age-friendly community, having healthcare that's accessible. Makes a huge difference in where people are going to choose to live and to have a business and to vacation. So these are all very important attributes of our fire department that we don't talk about every day. And I guess basically once every 3 years when we do a contract, we take the time to recognize them for their service. They've got an incredible amount of years of experience. And I'm getting some feedback, I think. Yikes. Has it gone away? I'll keep talking. So the other part of the organization of the fire department that I'd like people to be aware of is we have what's considered a collaborative management system, where we have a labor management team where management and labor meet proactively to talk about issues so that you don't have to wait for the contract to expire, but it's also a more collaborative approach. If we see things that need to be addressed, you can address them then. And so having the open door policy that the fire chief has and the firefighters all understanding that it's their responsibility as much as management's responsibility to make sure that things are operating well, that the budget is managed, and that we're doing as good a job as we possibly can for the people of Ogunquit. So not every department does things like that. Not every union is open to those kind of things. So again, I'm very proud of our firefighters for being open to having that kind of management and labor relationship. The contract itself is pretty simple because we do have that kind of relationship where we discuss issues proactively. This one really only focuses on wages. And so for this 3-year contract, we're looking at a 2.5% increase for the first year, a 3.5% for the second, and a 3.5% for the third. And in saying that, I want to just remind everybody that my introductory remarks about the level of skill that we have, we are in a very highly competitive market, or time for that matter, for finding skilled professional firefighters who are EMTs and have the firefighting skills as well. Very much in high demand. So these things have to be taken into consideration. We are by no means the highest percentage increase that we're looking at, nor are we the lowest. But what we're looking at is what it's going to take to retain the firefighters that we have. We're doing so much good for our community, and being recognize the value to our taxpayers as well. That it's something that is worth paying for. So let's see, the other thing that we did is in their contract, we have what's called a pay time off, and the contract brings their pay time off hours in line with our other unions. So I want to thank the firefighters who worked on this contract. Union President Scott Bork, who recently has decided to let Captain Shannon Bridges take over, Vice President Nathaniel Pierce, and the IAFF agent Jerry Day, and of course our Fire Chief Ed Smith. So thank you, everybody, and happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Pat. Are there comments or questions from the select board before we open it up for public opinion? I mean, public comment and opinion. Selectman Willett?
Yeah, I'll just share. Thanks, Pat, and to all who worked on this. I had an opportunity to take a tour of our fire department a few months ago before COVID hit, and learn more about the work that they're doing and that they do. And I think your summary here is spot on. In fact, we had a conversation. There was a conversation about replacing a fire truck in sometime in the future, and the conversation was, that's all great, but we actually need more staffing, because if we're going to think about it, because then it would be a new fire truck that would end up just sitting because we don't have enough staff on at any time. And we certainly also discussed that volunteers, that has changed over the years from, while we have still a high number of volunteers compared to other communities, it certainly is something that's evolving and changing. So anyhow, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Selectman Willett. Anyone else? And I can't see, I can't get, sorry for the interruption. I can't get my screen on to be able to see everybody at once. It's not working, but I see Selectman Wynn and Selectman Willett right now. Is there Selectman Wynn? Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just waving.
Oh, hi. So I'll ask Selectman Daley, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I guess I do. Pat, sorry. Pat's completely right. I agree with everything Pat said. We have the best fire department in the world. We really do. And they're extremely skilled, and they have more, they're just very skilled, more than most departments. They really, really are. But I just don't believe in throwing money at things. You know, the average raise in America right now is just under 3%. I have 480 employees. They're getting just like 2.8%. Social Security is like, I think 1.8. Don't quote me on that. It's under 2. So it's not a lot of money. No, 3.5, 1.8, 3%. It's not a lot of money, but I just think I want to take care of the taxpayers as well as the fire department. There's a balancing act. And I think I'm in the minority that I think we're being too generous. I think PTO, changing the PTO is being too generous. We're letting them accumulate up to 600 hours. That's 15 weeks. How many people get 15 weeks of vacation? How many people can accumulate 15 weeks of vacation? Yeah, we're going to allow that. If we're allowing up to 15 weeks vacation, we're giving too much vacation time. 15 weeks vacation. Think about that. One more point. Yeah, I think PTO is like a savings account that the taxpayers are funding, and I don't like that. I want to take care of the fire department. I think we take very good care of them. They deserve it. They deserve every penny they get. But I just think it's just, every contract we seem to go more and more generous. to people who probably deserve it, maybe, but again, taxpayers, fire department. And I don't think people like saying no to the fire department because they are so great. But sometimes you have to say, no, this is too much. Thank you.
Selectwoman Perry, I can't see you. If you have any comments.
I don't have much to say, with the exception of, I know a lot of hard work went into this and a lot of planning, and Pat, I appreciate you handling this the way that you did. It's a very complex document and there was a lot of negotiation that happened there. And I know that in the same vein of throwing money at things, I think that this ended up being a fair negotiation and it went well. So I really appreciate everything that's been done for the firefighters and the agreements that, you know, got us to the place that we're at to be able to offer these opportunities to them. There's some really good points in there. So thanks for doing this. I think everything looks good on my end.
Thank you. I support this agreement. I agree with John, a balance between the taxpayers and what we pay our people. And this has been budgeted, even in our skinny down budget, and we are leaving the tax rate the same this year and accommodating what's important to the town. What swayed me was Pat has been working with an HR consultant who helps the town in certain issues, and she had said that this was competitive, and we want to be in that situation where we're competitive with salaries and benefits. So let's open it up, Tom, to public comment on the firefighter collective bargaining agreement.
Elaine, you should be able to unmute and talk.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. I just want to say, in relation to the percentage increase that the fire department is getting, they're in a much more dangerous situation than anybody else in the town, maybe other than the police department is in. And we're giving everybody else a 3% raise. So 3.5% to me certainly is in line with the duties that they have. But I'd just like to clarify something. I don't know if people have it in front of you on page 17, of the collective bargaining agreement, where you talk about paid time off, which John had mentioned is increasing from 420 to 600 hours. That's in section 2. In section 5, you go back to that. When you separate from the department, your first 420 hours of unused PTO is done at 100%. Should that switch to 600 hours now, or do you want to leave that at 420? Okay, that was my only question, is to make sure that that number wasn't inadvertently left when it should have changed. Thanks.
Thank you, Elaine. Don't go far. We're going to turn this over to Pat.
That was the that's the correct language.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I've Jim Hartwell. You should be able to talk.
Just a quick comment. Not too long ago, I recognized that the fire department was a 2-diamond, not a 5. And because of the effort of the town manager and a long drawn out process, we have a 5-diamond fire department today. And my closing comment is, when I was talking to the temporary fire chief, Mr. Smith, I asked him if he would commit to another 25 years. I don't know if I can do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it for hands raised right now.
Thank you so much, Tom. Okay, looking for a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract with, looking for the approval of a 3-year collective bargaining agreement with the Ogunquit Professional Firefighters, IAFF Local 3771. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you for saying this. Motion by Selectman Wynn. Is there a second? I can't see anybody, so please say your name.
He said second.
Heath, you're saying second?
Yes, second.
Okay, all those in favor, show of hands. If somebody could
Yes.
count for me too.
4,
3 to 1, 4 to
4.
4 to 1. Let me get, John Daly dissenting.
Good guess.
Thank you for your analysis, seriously.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I just want to, in your screen, in the upper right-hand corner, it should,
Right.
if you hover your mouse, it should say speaker view, and you should be able to click that and see everybody.
no, I have, okay. Yeah, I was able to do it. I was doing it without my mouse before. Okay, sorry about that. Now I see everybody. So that completes the items that we had to vote on for tonight. And what we have left is the very important warrant articles and the town manager's report. And then, of course, citizens' comments. So next on the agenda is a public hearing on the warrant. And it might sound like, oh, didn't we already do this? Yes, we did. We actually hold 3 public hearings to give the public an opportunity to ask questions or state their comments about any of the warrant articles that are on the ballot that many of you have already received, and you have gotten it in the mail as well. Before we start, I wanted to turn it over to Pat just quickly to go over some budget items or the overall budget concept, and then we'll move to questions on the budget and on the town warrant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Tom, I don't know if you can put up the summary of the budget, but if you could, that would probably help people follow along. If not, it is on the website for people to look at. But just a reminder, the budget this year, we started off in a very different world than where we ended up. And so the budget that is being presented is an operating budget only. It doesn't include capital items because of where we were looking at the economy and what kind of financial pressures people might be experiencing. So the select board wanted to have a budget that would not require a tax rate increase for anybody in town, and to look at the budget, each individual budget to cut what we could or come in flat. And so as you looked at each of the budgets, most of them are flat, many of them are less. In the areas where there is increase, it is primarily in public safety, but is still within a reasonable amount. So the overall budget increase for the coming year is 1.7% and or about $158,000. I think that when you look at the warrant, and this one of the citizens asked me a question over the weekend that I need to respond to more fully. But if you only know what you're looking at in the warrant, you don't really have a full picture about what the budget is. You have each department, but you don't know what the bottom line is. So for people to know, for the town budget, all in is approximately $9 million, the 1.7% increase. That's everything for public safety, general government, transfer station, the harbor, all of our committees, as well as our debt service on prior year capital projects. When you vote at your warrant article, if you do not approve the proposed budget that is before you, it defaults to the prior year's budget. And in 99% of these budgets, if you don't approve this budget amount, you'll be approving a larger budget amount. So I just want people to understand what that means, because I do think it's confusing for people. I think there was a time when some communities didn't have a default position, and if people voted against a budget, the end of the fiscal year, they had no money, and they basically didn't have a police department or didn't have a fire department. And so this is a way that there's always going to be some funding available for the government to continue to operate. But this year, it's unusual. You always try to come in with a budget that isn't any higher than is necessary, that doesn't expect more from people to pay for taxes, but still provides the essential services that people rely on us for. And I think we've talked about a number of them already tonight. So I might just stop there to see if anybody does have questions or comments about the budget, the warrant. And again, this town meeting warrant is different than others you're used to seeing. It's shorter because it only has the operating budget. It has no capital improvement projects. It doesn't have any ordinance amendments or anything else like that. The select board has talked about if there's any opportunity for those things to happen, they would be discussed and be at a special town meeting in November. But there's not necessarily going to be a second part to this budget, depending on how the year goes.
Thank you, Pat. We're opening up the public hearing on the July 14th town meeting warrant articles at 7:27 p.m. Tom, any inquisitive minds out there?
There are no hands raised.
Well, this is going to be an early meeting, quick
Don't
meeting.
jinxing us.
Well, thank you. We have had 2 public hearings before. So hopefully any questions you might have had have been answered, or you can always contact the town manager if you have specific questions.
And Madam Chair, if I
Yes,
could.
Yes.
I believe the town clerk, Chris Murphy, is with us. If not, I will be proven wrong. But I thought this would be a good time for us to remind everybody that this would be a different kind of election, and we are hoping people understand some improvements that Chris has made to make voting this year as safe as possible for everybody. So if Chris is available to speak. Or not. Tom, do you see Chris anywhere?
Yep, she should be able to unmute and talk.
Okay, there she is. Great. Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Thank you, Chris. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay. So today we broke the 500 mark for absentees.
Wow.
So I at 501, so that's very exciting. I would love in the next 2 weeks to get another 200. It would be a good turnout. It would be a good absentee turnout. We are still going to early process on Saturday, July 11th. And in the past week or so, we had a lockbox installed. It's on the right side of the building. If you're looking at the building, you just go up the ramp and there's a night drop and it goes into a secure box. I'm the only one right now that has keys to it. They're kept in the safe. I check it periodically. I even went down this weekend to check it because I was so excited to have it installed. Also, I would just like to throw out there that I would love to have a drive-through window installed that we had talked about possibly getting state funding. It just didn't work out, but I would like that in the future. It would help with voting, every transaction we do in town. So absentee is going really well, I think.
And Chris, can you remind people how to get an absentee ballot and if there's a timeline or anything?
Yes. So probably the easiest way for someone to do it is just to call my office. We take the information over the phone and I mail the ballot out that day. They also could download the form off our website, fill it out and mail it in. Or also on our website is a link to the state absentee request, which the request comes to me electronically. They get a confirmation email back from me once I accept it, and the ballot will go out that day as well.
So Chris, I mean, if somebody really wants to vote, but they don't want to come into the building, they have options. If they would prefer to not to have a face-to-face contact, they can certainly call you, as you said, but they could drop it off in the US mail if they chose to, or they could come to the town office and use your new lockbox.
Yes, that's correct. You know, it's very easy. A phone call takes 2 minutes. I just ask name, physical location, mailing address, and date of birth for ID purposes. And the ballot will go right out.
And Chris, not totally on absentee ballots, but if somebody is new to town and they want to register to vote, how do they do that?
At some point, I have to verify their ID. They can mail in a card. They would then be in a pending status, but still could vote. I would prefer that they came in and I verified their identity and their residency in Ogunquit, at which point I would then, right there with them still here, I would add them to the voting list and issue an absentee if they chose to vote absentee. And they can do that up until July 14th.
At 7:59.
That's right. That lockbox will be locked from the outside at 8 o'clock on election day so that no ballots can come in at 8:05 or 10 o'clock at night. They won't be counted.
Mm-hmm. Chris, what are the hours on voting day?
8 to 8.
8 to 8, okay.
And if anybody would like to see the early processing, that will start at 9 o'clock Saturday, July 11th.
So could you explain what that means, Chris, for people who may not have seen that before?
Yes, so early processing, I had to several weeks ago notify the state that I would be processing absentee ballots early. I anticipated a large volume of absentees, so I did do that. We have the option to process them Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. So, or all 3 days. I just chose to do Saturday. The ballot clerks will be there. I have been batching the ballots by date and time received in groups of about 25 to 35 ballots. So it would just be like a normal election day. A ballot clerk will read the absentee ballot, the name on the envelope, to the incoming clerk. They'll mark it as AB, absentee. It'll get put in a bucket. Another clerk will open the envelope, separate the ballots from the envelope, throwing those into another bucket, at which point another clerk will start to feed them through the machine. The ballots, once the name is read, the ballots have to be separated from the envelope and the ballots themselves. The envelope can't be slid open and just left sitting there. They've got to be separated.
And Chris, this isn't because it's your personal preference of doing it this way. It's the law. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. It is the law. I like the process. I wouldn't mind anybody coming to watch. There will be guardrails and probably social distancing even for that event. But I would love to have people come and watch the process. It's an open process. I think it would instill more faith in the process if people could see how we handle it.
Yeah. So Chris, you'll be doing that in the auditorium at the Dunaway, and we would require people to have masks, and we would require them to be separated. So if we got too many people there, we'd have to ask people to come back. But what you're trying to say is people are welcome.
That's right. And I have started to get some PPE supplies from the state. Today I got the plastic face shields. Enough for every one of the ballot clerks and anybody working at the elections. And I've gotten gloves, face masks, hand sanitizer, Clorox wipes. So we will be doing that throughout the day, whether it's the Saturday early processing or the Tuesday actual voting day.
And the same thing with the lockbox, Chris, that was allowed under very strict guidelines as well. Is that right?
Yes. It took a little bit of finagling to get that box in there because I wanted a box as big as I possibly could get it. It's about 3 by 3.
Wow. Wow.
I wanted to make sure that those ballots, if somebody put them in, they were going to drop quite a distance. And that if there were 50 envelopes, everybody's gotten those envelopes. You know how thick they are, that they would fall to the bottom. They wouldn't wedge standing up. There would be no way for anybody to pull a ballot out. So that box is pretty big. And the state is going to reimburse us up to $1,500 for the cost of that box. So it won't be a total town expense.
And the whole issue of it being very secure and being locked right at 8 o'clock, again, that was something that was basically an executive order that came down to make sure that everybody had confidence in our election process. Isn't that right?
Yes, it is. They had sent me strict specifications as to this lockbox. It could have been a lockbox located, not even attached to the building, but it would have had to have been cemented in or somehow secured into the ground that it couldn't be removed, couldn't be tampered with. I just like the idea of it being coming into the building and not out in the elements. So it worked out really well. The placement is really good. I think people will like it.
It's been pretty heavily used so far, right?
Yes, it has been. I check it several times a day.
It's good. So thanks, Chris. I appreciate all the attention and diligence you're using to make sure this unusual election year will go as smoothly as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we all agree with that. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the town manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're still on, Pat.
Great. We'll keep going with the theme of safety and making sure that everybody in Ogunquit knows that we are looking out for each other. And so a lot of that has fallen to our police department and the community service officers until we can get some additional people to help us through this Keep Me Healthy grant. And I've asked the Police Chief Pat Arnardin to be with us this evening because, as I said earlier, most of our inquiries or complaints or concerns have been about masks. So Pat, if you could do an update for us.
Sure. Today we had CSO Corey at the Marginal Way at the lighthouse, and I spoke to him a little after 4 o'clock after he got off duty, and he handed out 80 masks today. He hasn't had any bad feedback. People are accepting it and putting them on, except one jogger in the morning. He asked, "Do you have a mask?" She said no and kept running.
Is that Bob Wynn?
No, that wasn't me.
You won't see me there.
So
real early.
he wasn't going to chase after her. So that was just one person. So everyone else out of the 80 that he gave out were certainly glad to see him, actually. So he's working 8 to 4, and there should be a CSO there every day now, as long as we have, enough staff. And right now we do, but you never know what's going to happen. The PA system at the main beach is actually scheduled to be installed on Thursday, and it'll have like rotating announcements on a loop. There'll be 4 speakers on one pole, so it'll be at a 360 degree. So every area of the beach will get the announcements, and I believe it's going to be an hourly announcement for rules on social distancing and wearing masks. So that's something to look forward to. We do have an anonymous person who has donated 500 masks to be given out to at-risk people, and we have given that information to the Rotary volunteers who are calling our seniors to see if they need any masks. We do have an adequate supply of PPE, hand sanitizer, masks, gloves at the police department, and we normally try to keep about 1,500 masks in surplus. We have masks for visitor service people to use and also to give out at their booths, as well as our CSO personnel. They have masks to use and also to give out. We've been pretty busy during the day, but after 10 o'clock at night, it's pretty quiet because there's not too much nightlife as of yet. So that's it for me, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for the chief? No, okay.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, there's Grace.
Uh,
I'll mute her now. But she says thank you.
The staying with the safety theme, but also trying to be Ogunquit. Last Sunday, the Parks and Recreation Committee had their first concert in the park. This was going to be a big, I think, experiment because we're limited to 50 people being there. But we knew people wanted to do that. There's plenty of room for people to space out when people do that. And so I want to congratulate Michelle Lowe and Jason Corbin for organizing that, and Ian Kaiser for being the MC. We got just under 50, which was perfect. People did space themselves as they should, but the innovation we used was to be able to live stream the concert, so it could be on the Parks and Rec Facebook page, the police department Facebook page, as well as on town hall streams. I think that one of the learning experiences was that we need to have a better microphone to pick up on the performers better. But Jake Roach and friends got us started off in a great style. Unfortunately, Mother Nature decided she wanted to rain that night. So we got about half of the show in, but that was well worth it. So that was a wonderful thing. The other major area that we're spending a lot of time on in terms of health and safety is in our bathroom area. We've got the brand new Main Beach bathhouses. We had those completely sanitized before they opened. The task is to make sure they stay safe for all to use, and that when people do use them, they're using safe practices. So we have been in the process of hiring additional attendants. And again, the Keep Me Healthy grant is going to help us with that, to be able to regularly clean, as well as be greeters or ambassadors to make sure that people are physically distancing themselves as they should, and to make sure that we don't have more people in the bathhouse than we should have. Unfortunately, because we haven't had the numbers of people that we normally have, we have not had lines. Social distancing or physical distancing has not been an issue. So it's a mixed blessing. But I think as the summer goes on, we'll start to see more people. So I'm happy that we've had more of a slow ramp up for the staff to get used to with the routines of cleaning, as well as interactions with the public. So we do have sanitizing equipment as the first line of defense for all the bathhouses, and then hands-on cleaning throughout the day to do sanitizing as well as cleaning, which we take very seriously. I think that we always wanted to have clean bathrooms, but I think it is a public health issue now that we need to take very seriously and make sure that we've got the staff to do that. Of course, Darren Dixon, our facilities manager, has been doing this a number of years. We've got several employees who've been doing this for several years who are experienced. And then we have our new people who are coming in, I think very upbeat and wanting to do the best they possibly can for the people of Ogunquit as well as our visitors. So we're pleased that we're at that point. I think the other thing I wanted to mention is with respect to this weekend, it's hard to believe it's 4th of July. Ordinarily, there'll be a flurry of activity. I think this weekend, we're just looking to make sure we have things in place to keep people safe. And so that's why I want to make sure you could hear from the police chief. We certainly have our code officer that is going around periodically to look at how everything's running. When he gets some reinforcements from the Keep Me Healthy grant, that will be helpful. Our relationship with the chamber will be very helpful with that as well. But normally we'd be talking about fireworks and how that was going to affect the plovers. We've got a wonderful group of plovers this year. I think, again, record breaking over last year. Bobby Morse, our plover steward, and the volunteers will still be on the beach 4th of July evening because of the concern about impromptu firework displays that should not be happening, but we're being realistic that they will. So the police department will also be helping us with that as well. We'll be putting messages on our electronic message board to remind people that fireworks are not authorized in Ogunquit, and for people to stay safe in that respect. For projects that we are working on, we had a meeting this week with the engineers working on Agamenicus Road. We've got just a few more people to have personal meetings with to make sure they understand what kind of encroachment there might be on their property as we design the road. But we look forward to a public meeting within the next month. So that the project can be on track for fall startup and spring wrap up. We received official word this week that the trolley system will not be operating in Ogunquit this year. And of course, it hasn't, the other trolley system had already announced that they would not be operating this year either. The other thing is, this is June 30th, which is the last day of our fiscal year. I don't have official results, but certainly in working with the treasurer, I wanted to see where things stood. And so in terms of revenues, we are ahead of budget for revenues, which is a wonderful thing because most of the year we were in a very good situation. So we are just over about 100% for revenues, and we still have property taxes coming in that are due July 15th. In terms of expenditures, we are at about 96% expenditure, so we will have some money to return to the unassigned fund balance. And I just want to say that the discussion we had earlier about the town meeting warrant and the budget, putting a budget together is an important responsibility that I have as a town manager, but all of the department heads have as well. And it's a trust relationship with our citizens. And when people vote on an expenditure, we know that we have to live within that amount of money, and we want to give people as much value as possible. So this will be my third year of a budget. I've never overspent a budget, don't intend to. There are always circumstances beyond one's control, but to the extent that we do control them, that's why we had a spending freeze to close out the end of this year to make sure that we are always going to meet budget and not overspend that budget. And you always try to take in more revenues than you project as well. So I just really want to emphasize that these are unaudited figures, but the early assessment as we look at the year ending on June 30th is that we are going to be under budgeted for expenditures and over budgeted for revenues, not excessively. I don't want people thinking we are overtaxing people. At the same time, you try to bring in more revenues each year so that you can replenish your rainy day fund in your savings account, because you want to have money available when you do have times like these, or even lesser times where we do have a solid financial footing. The other question with respect to revenues, as you know, we did not open the parking lots on time as we normally would. In April, of course, we were still, basically everyone had a stay-at-home order. So we were not opening those kind of functions, and both in terms of what was the right thing to do from a health standpoint, also what was the right thing to do in terms of our own employees' health. So we were closed for all of April, and we were closed for all of May, and we opened, I think it was June 12th, which is just about 2 weeks and 2 days. And where we are ending the year for visitor services for the parking lots is, if you look at this June compared to the average of Junes for the 3 prior years, we're at 74% of what we would have on average from the prior 3 years, which I think is an excellent place to be. That's just over $210,000 that we've taken in. So I think that that's a good sign of what will be signs of things to come, hopefully in July and August. I think we're looking at it as if we'd had a rainy spring, we might have been looking at these same kind of numbers. I just want to thank once again Ray Hamlin, Jean McSweeney, and all of our what I call our awesome attendants who work our parking lots and as visitor services people. We couldn't do this kind of work without them. They scrambled to get us all up and running. They did it with good humor. And I think that the people, as they arrive at our parking lots, are always very happy to see our attendance. So I just thought that it was good news for you all to hear, I think, because everyone was concerned about what we were going to be doing revenue-wise for the parking lot, since we did open basically with 2 weeks in the season. If you looked at the overall season to date, that is about a 54% compared to overall season. But for June, we're at 74%. So I also just want to, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize, of course, Arnie Ginsberg. I think people who knew Arnie knew he was a character, but he brought a lot to this community, and I think he brought a lot to the broadcasting industry throughout the United States. And Jordan Friedman did an interview with Arnie a few years ago, and that's going to be replayed on WOGT this Sunday, July 5th at 7 p.m. So late breaking news. And I'm sure it will be replayed by popular demand. So that's something for people to look forward to. I think I also just want to say, as we end this one fiscal year and start the next fiscal year, most people don't care about this, but if you're in municipal government, this is, a happy new year and time for all of us. And to be able to be in a position where we are experiencing this pandemic, where people are suffering in many different ways in our own community, as well as throughout the United States, for us still to step back and look at the many, many things that we have to be grateful for if we just give ourselves a couple of minutes to think about them, because we live in a remarkable community. We live in a remarkable community, both from its natural assets, but more importantly, because of its people. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. And I wish that our New Year's resolution for this coming fiscal year is that we do not lose sight of that, and that we all appreciate each other and work with each other and do the best we possibly can to make this community that we love be the best it can be. And that as we go through the next several months, that it is as safe as it can be. And that Dr. Fauci is correct, and we get a virus vaccine sooner than later. And just to have that in our hearts. And it's a double celebration for us this year, because 40 years ago on this day, we were looking at ending our relationship with the town of Wells and starting our new history as our own independent community, the town of Ogunquit. And I think, again, those are things for us to learn some things about. We left Ogunquit for many different reasons, but But at the time we left left Wells, that was a division. There's no question. But this community was united. We were together in a goal and a thought process of what we wanted to be as a community. And so 40 years as we enter our middle age, I hope that those of you who have not reached middle age will be able to appreciate that. And those of you who are well past middle age will understand where we are in our history, and that we'll want to make the next 40 years the best we can be. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Pat. So in the beginning of the meeting, I stated that the news interview on Arnie Ginsberg would be on Friday, but Pat, it's at Sunday at 8 p.m. Is that right?
Sunday, July 5th at 7 p.m.
Sorry, Sunday, July 5th at 7 p.m.
We'll put it on the website. We'll post it. We'll put it on the electronic bulletin board. How's that?
That's a good idea. Thank you. And now, select board members can ask Pat questions. I ask you to limit it to the items that she covered. If you have other topics you want to discuss with Pat, you can do it one-on-one or submit it as an agenda item. Who would like to go first? I have a question. Nobody? Okay, Selectman Willett.
And I'm going to apologize because this wasn't on the agenda. But today I learned the transfer station has changed their days of operation. Do you want to let us, the public, know what those are?
You can do that in your closing comments. We're just going to do stick to items on the agenda.
Is this a new rule?
It's the rule of Robert Rules of Order, and I just was
that I can't ask the town manager about the transfer station days of operation?
You need to stick to items that she covered, but since it's a surprise, I guess, even though it's according to Robert's rules, you can ask her that. Go ahead.
I heard the question, I think. We have been looking at the transfer station since we started dealing with the pandemic and trying to find a schedule that works. We were getting concerns that we were closed Thursday and Friday, having the 2 days in a row seemed to be a hardship for people. And so starting this week, they've been split up that we're closed on Tuesdays, which is a new day to be closed, as well as Thursday, which is our regular day. We have been open 6 days in the past. We're still dealing with making sure that we have sufficient staff on duty and are able to be distanced as they should and to be able to take care of their own family at the same time.
Thank you, Pat.
Sure.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question? I have a couple. Pat, I just wanted to, I thought I heard you say that businesses pay more taxes than residents. You weren't referring to property taxes, were you? Because residents pay more than.
The value of the commercial real estate is higher. Yeah, they pay the lion's share of our taxes.
Really? I didn't realize that.
They pay the same tax rate.
Right, I know the same tax rate.
I don't want that rumor to start. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the comparison of the valuation?
I will. I'll have to get back to you if that's okay, rather than quote a number that I don't feel comfortable with. I reported on that a couple of weeks ago, but
okay.
I'll go back and look at that.
It just struck me now. Okay, thank you.
That's
and
great.
I just wanted to comment. We all the COVID task force didn't meet this week, so we don't have a presentation from them this week. But they did send an email to Pat with some of their observations that came from the chair and the vice chair. So that was helpful for the town manager. Okay, any other questions for Pat? Comments? Okay, next on the agenda is the citizens' comments. I just wanted to repeat what I said earlier, that there's a 3-minute limit, so we have an opportunity for everyone to speak. And we ask that you state your name and your street. You don't need to give your address, and your number and your town. And Tom, do we have? Can we open it up for public comment?
Yep. First, we have Mark Duffy. You should be able to unmute and talk.
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for a great meeting. I have to say that I've been watching these meetings for the last few weeks, and I have kind of mixed emotions back and forth, but I have to say that this is one of the best meetings that I've seen. I don't know actually any of you, maybe acquaintances on a couple of you, but I have to say that the town manager, Pat, I think, is really was very, very articulate tonight, really answered a lot of my questions, and I learned a lot. The select board in general, amazing tonight. You guys seemed like you're all very together, and I appreciate the fact that the questions that were asked, particularly by Selectman Willett, were very, very good and very probing, and really made a lot of sense. The idea about the grants, that's terrific. That's amazing that we're getting money that maybe we may not have asked for in the past, but we're also getting money that's helping the town. I don't know. I just want to say thank you very much. It was very engaging, and I really appreciated it, and especially the fact that we talked about Arnie Ginsberg. That was really cool. So thank you for that. And that's all I want to say. But thanks very much, folks. I've learned a lot over the last few months when I've been watching you guys more intently, and I feel like I can make a better judgment on how I'm going to vote this July. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mark. That was very, very nice of you. Thank you.
All right, next is Barbara or Pat.
Hi, it's Barbara Ferraro. Can you hear me? Hi.
Yes.
Yes, and I couldn't get on the last time, so I just want to go back to, before I give my statement, thank Kirsten Ross for her statement. And I'm wondering if Pat, you and David could put together figures of how much money came into the town from 2000 to 2017 before David was hired, and then from 2017 till now. That might help some of the naysayers that are complaining about this. Good evening, and I am giving this report for Barbara, Bobby Treen, and I. And we are very happy to announce on the fuel initiative that we have close to 24 families who have been sponsored by the Ogunquit Residents Alliance, and they're in full swing. They have contacted and are putting their contracts together. The Ogunquit Residents Alliance is sponsoring this program for all citizens and any business owners in town. You don't have to be a member of the Ogunquit Residents Alliance. People have asked me that. I said, no, this is something for everyone. We talked with over 12 different vendors, and here's the best offer that we accepted. For propane, if you pre-buy, you can get it at $1.59. For a fixed price, $1.69. For the oil prices, pre-buy $1.89, fixed price $2.09. These prices begin now, and they're good through April 30th of 2021. All contracts need to be signed by July 31st, 2020. If you're interested, please visit the Ogunquit Resident Alliance website, fill out a form, and submit it online. Or I went to the town center today, talked to Pat Finnegan. The box is still there. They're forms. You can sign them, leave them at the Dunaway Center. We really thank you all, and we look forward to hearing from more of you who can benefit from this great offer. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is Tom Sellers.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want wanted to, first of all, congratulate Town Manager David and all the department heads for bringing in the Keep Maine Healthy Initiative grant. I had two comments on that particular grant. First is, I think we get into these conversations about specific positions and departments, and that really isn't the appropriate or proper role for talking about specific positions. That's not really the role for the select board. We should be talking about the direction that the departments are going in and what they need in terms of resources, and it should be management's responsibility to figure out who they need to hire to get that done. But this particular project, where in 12 days, Dave quarterbacked the department heads to make a team effort that brought in this money, is an incredible success story. I did a little math while I was sitting around, and Wells got $161,000, which equates to about $16 per resident. York got $293,000, which equates to about $23 per resident. Ogunquit got $233,000, which equates to $176 per resident. So the reason that you have a position that quarterbacks grant funding for a town is the guys who don't do that end up with a lot less money than we do. So congratulations, you did a terrific job, and it's going to really, really help this town offset some of our expenses and help us stay within budget in fiscal 21, which is going to be a difficult year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Gail Brother.
Hi, this is Gail Brother from Briar Bank, and this has been a great meeting. I'm learning a lot about the town of Ogunquit. I really appreciate it. But I have one comment. Last week I commented on masks on the marginal way, but what I've noticed is that the lifeguards are not social distancing, nor are they wearing masks. And as employees of the town, I think that doesn't look good for the people walking on the marginal way, for Little Beach, and people hanging out at the beach, to see the lifeguards not doing that. And if they can't wear masks all day, perhaps they can be given shields to wear. And with that, I pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. We can't answer that question tonight, but certainly the town manager is here to hear what you say, and also the COVID task force. And we'll be looking forward to their opinions on this. But thank you for bringing it up.
And next is Rick.
Hi. I just wanted to correct.
Excuse me, can you state your name and
Rick
address?
Dolliver, Shore Road, Ogunquit, Maine. I just wanted to correct somebody that there are, give or take, 3,500 tax bills in the town of Ogunquit. About 260 of them are commercial properties, and their valuation is somewhere in the 24 to 26% range. So residential properties pay about 76% of the taxes in Ogunquit. The commercial properties pay somewhere in the 20 to 26%. I'm not going to talk about lack of FOIA requests tonight. I'm not going to, I just don't want to beat a dead horse. I can't get the information anyway, and I can't get questions answered. But the residents in Ogunquit pay 76% of the property tax every year.
Thank you, Rick. That was my thinking, and we'll have to get a definite number on that, maybe for the next meeting.
And there are no other hands raised. Oh,
Well,
there's
thank
one
you.
more.
Okay.
Michael, you should be able to unmute and talk.
Thank you. Good morning. Excuse me. Good evening. It's Michael Scambati from Israel Head Road. And I just wanted to thank the select board and the town as we end Pride Month, this month of June, for helping us celebrate the LGBTQT community virtually, and the raising of the flag virtually in Town Square. You helped us focus on our pride and coming together as a diverse community. And in the spirit of that celebration, you stayed focused on that. I'm glad we didn't get too off track talking about what flagpole was used or where the police might have hung it on the wrong flagpole, because the real goal here was to talk about the celebration and celebrating our pride. I also want to thank each of you for talking about our successes and talking about what we're doing right. You know, the town does you know, things 90% of the time right and 10% of the time maybe wrong. And focusing on the 90% really felt good tonight, and talking about what we do right. You know, we didn't talk much about the new bathrooms, and, you know, John and Bobby, you did such a great job of shepherding the process and acting as liaisons, and, you know, working with budget review and the planning board and the bathroom advisory committee. You know, there's so many things we do right, and it just feels good to talk about what we do right versus nitpick on what we do wrong. So thank you for that. I appreciate everybody coming together, and I hope we can see more of this in the future. Have a great night, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Michael.
And now there are no more.
Okay, thank you so much, Tom. So the last item on the agenda is selectmen comments. You want to start with Selectman Wynn?
Just a comment to jump on Michael's back there. I really appreciate that. I really think that that's what we really should be doing. Like he said, 90% of the time we're doing the best work we can possibly do. And then there's that small 10%. You know, I think being positive and trying to work in a positive direction is a much better way to go. I think we'll accomplish a lot more. That's not to say we need to speak up, obviously, if they see something that's not quite right. But we also need to look at that as possibly a positive thing. It may seem negative at the time, but in the end, it's a great possibility it could be positive. But I'm happy to hear all these people's comments, and it feels good. Feels good. I know I've spoken about it before and have heard some negative comments, you know, about what I said, but that's okay, because I'm going to stay positive through all of it. So I'm good. Thank you for everybody. Stay healthy.
Thank you. Selectman Daley?
First, I'm going to be voting in person because I want to see Chris Murphy's smiley face, friendly face. I'll keep my distance, but I want to see Chris. It's been too long. And second, I appreciate the police chief's comments earlier about PPE. I'm going to drop off 300 face masks tomorrow at the police station, and she can do what she wants with them, wherever she thinks that they go best. And if you decide to you want face shields for the lifeguards, let me know, and I will donate them. Just let me know.
Thank you, John.
I have them. Just let me know how many you want, if you want them at all. Second, I was at the beach this past Saturday and Sunday with my two nephews, 6 years old and 5 years old, and they actually went in the water. You know, it's kind of cold, but I'm bringing that up because it was a fun day, a fun weekend. But also people kept their distance. People were 20, 30, 40 feet away. It was safe. It was a safe environment. So I really enjoyed the beach, and I felt safe, and I felt safe with my nephews. And on top of that, Pat, community service officers, I love them. They're so informative. Then they're just good. Sometimes you see a police officer walk the beach. Yeah, you know, you get a little nervous, like, why is the police officer here? Some people get intimidated by a police officer. But community service officers are fantastic. And I hope we continue to practice that and hire them.
Absolutely.
Yes. And Madam Chair and Pat, thank you for bringing up Annie Woo Ginsburg. When I first moved here 15 years ago, full time, and I joined the budget committee like 2 months after I moved here, he was on the budget committee. And he was very involved with him and very friendly, and he was great. So thank you for mentioning him earlier. And the last thing is, I don't want people to get me wrong. I've never mentioned Dave Ricchio's name before because, like someone said earlier, town employees report to the town manager, not the select board. We have nothing to do with the employees. We set policy, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I have nothing against Dave, and I don't want people to take it the wrong way. We all have our own experiences. I'm trying to work with the state right now to get a grant for my job, for my project, my $1 million project. I'm doing it myself. I'm not hiring anyone. So I just find it odd that we have to hire someone to get grants when I think department heads do it themselves. I do it for myself. I would never go to my boss and say, can I hire a project manager? So it's not a personal issue. It's just my own experience. And what I think, I don't know, it's my own experience. So it's not a personal issue. And please don't anyone take it that way. Please. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Willett?
Guess I was on mute, sorry. I appreciate the comments that have been said tonight, and I too think this has been one of our better meetings. Somebody said it before, we're more alike than we're different. Pat, you talked about the community uniting 40 years ago, and I see that there's lots of opportunities. This select board in November, December had started to talk about a lot about the future, and there was talk about developing some common vision statements, etc. And I'm hopeful that we can, sometimes those things can really help to have a better understanding of people and where they're coming from, and truly work towards the same goals. As I reflect on the last 6 months, I just want to thank everyone for this opportunity to serve. Abraham Lincoln once said, "We can complain because the rose bushes have thorns, or rejoice because thorn bushes have roses." So I'm going to focus in on those roses and our good times together. So thank you.
Thank you. Selectwoman Perry?
Hey, everybody. I want to echo Michael's sentiments in regards to the town and how they have been able to celebrate Pride Month. I did forget that it was the end of the month already. How time flies when we're having fun. But I think that we got an opportunity to see a lot of celebrations across the country. And I hope that all of you had an opportunity to take a minute and reflect on how the LGBTQ community has impacted our lives and how much they have given to us. And I hope that we all find our ways to be able to give back to LGBTQ communities. I also want to commend the town, the businesses that are in town. I also had an opportunity to go out throughout the week and frequent several establishments. And I think anybody that knows Jake and I, you know that we're like nervous Nellies, and I felt super safe everywhere I went. I felt like all the business owners were taking this very seriously, and that was really good to see. And I felt at ease at each of the establishments that I went to. It was great to see some of the retail shops be innovative in their ways to get outside and get people walking around and visiting their shops and helping boost our economy still yet. That was really great news to hear about the parking. I do appreciate that update, Pat. I know that there has been some concerns on where we would land, and comparing it to a rainy spring, I think it happens. So I think that what did you say, 74% for where we would be at now? I think that's really fantastic. So thank you for that. And last but not least, thank you for everybody that helped make the concert in the park possible. It was awesome to get to see Jake, my husband, out there, but it was really so humbling in a way, as just a community member, to see all of my fellow community members showing up, still supporting this series, and being extremely safe, and having an opportunity to meet some of the CSOs that were help working that. Pat, you got an opportunity. we had an awesome chat with one of the CSOs that was there, and they take their job very seriously, but they also take it in a way that is with good humor and fun, and they really care about what they're doing. And it really shows when town employees have pride in their work. So I really appreciate that. And just keep up the good work, everybody. I agree. It's been a really positive meeting. And I think it's because we're seeing really positive things in town, and what comes around goes around. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a lot of good news tonight, and I think sometimes we don't count how fortunate we are in this town, living in this town, and also, you know, the town government that we have in place that is managing our money very prudently and getting a lot of things done in innovative ways. But right now, I think ensuring a safe community in Ogunquit is number one. And we needed more resources to help get that done. We have them. We need everybody together on this. The message is you can come to Maine, you can come to Ogunquit. It's a safe place. So it's a message that works for everybody. And I think that our citizens are doing everything in their power, businesses and residents, to fulfill that message. And I think that's really important. We need to make safety number one, and continue to move down the way that we're moving. And please don't be shy, not that you are, about communicating with the select board, what you see as some successes and some ways we can improve. So thank you, everyone. Please get out there and vote. Very important election. And you heard the town clerk talk about ways you can vote. Just call her office, and you don't have to go there in person, but if you choose to, you certainly can. So everybody, please get out and vote. And thank you so much for your participation. Is there a motion to adjourn the select board meeting at 8:22 p.m.?
So moved.
Motion by Selectman Wynn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Selectwoman Perry. All those in favor, show of hands. Motion passes 5-0. Good night, everyone, and thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.